screen share are rolling. Welcome to our third annual Cloud Go-to-Market XP experience. I'm so excited to kick off the event with so many from the software industry that are passionate about the intersection of cloud and go-to-market. Please, in the chat, feel free, put where you're coming from. I see people doing that already, which is exciting. I'm coming from Buffalo, New York, the B town of Cloud, one of the B towns of Cloud. Also, Boise is where Dylan and Brian were from, so we joke it's the B towns of Cloud. So we will get into this. All right, so why Cloud Go-to-Market XP? We're in the midst of a transformation of go-to-market, and we continue to see this being a very, very dynamic space. Innovations coming from all these different directions, not just the clouds, but from ISVs and partners leveraging cloud go-to-market. And we're excited to bring speakers together from all different organization types, the cloud providers, ISVs, our partners, all to share their stories. And we have tracks for ISVs of all sizes, from growing startups up to large public companies. And we actually break the agenda down for both executives and practitioners. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Tackle is born and built remote. And as a company, even though it seems like we're racing back to these in-person events, we still feel like remote's the right way to do this. Why is that? Because cloud go-to-market's gone global. And a remote event gives us the best chance to get the best speakers packaged into sessions that you can learn from not only today, but at any point along your cloud go-to-market journey. So you saw Brian Danker's video. This is a repeat in case you joined a couple minutes late. If you want to share on social, tag Tackle.io, use the hashtag CloudGoToMarketXP. Please do chat, ask questions along the way. I'll stop a couple times to ask questions. If not, we have moderators from Tackle who will answer. And there are a ton of market experts on this call. Feel free, share, chime in, chat, answer questions. We appreciate you being here. And next, just a quick, second thanks to our sponsors. This event wouldn't happen without Google, AWS, and ZoomInfo. So, what will you get out of investing time with us over the next 2 days? 18 months ago, we rolled out our cloud go-to-market maturity model to help all ISVs map a path towards strategic cloud go-to-market. We have learned a ton from working with our customers on this model, and it gives us a framework to be able to share insights, not only today, but into the future as you engage with Tackle. Whether you view cloud go-to-market transactionally as a method for deal fulfillment or strategically in pursuit of becoming your largest channel, we have sessions today for you. As Brian said, we have 25 experts with real-world experience, success strategies for building and scaling cloud go-to-market. And some of the themes over the next 2 days center around getting executive buy-in, which is a pretty common talk track with ISVs. Broader alignment with your revenue team. How do you get your sellers to really take advantage of this? Understanding the evolution of AI and cloud go-to-market, scaling your co-sell motions, and playbooks for internal enablement, and much more. And the agenda, you'll see there should be an agenda box at the top of your screen where you can click and you can see the agenda at any point. But I did want to call out a few sessions that I'm excited about. A few of these are today and one of them's tomorrow. So Daivu from Google is going to join us. AI, obviously, all the rage, and he's going to talk about how cloud go-to-market's evolving in this AI area. So should be an exciting session. We have a session specifically around getting CRO buy-in. That's actually right after this keynote. And Steven from ZoomInfo is going to join Jake as well as a couple other people on that session right after the keynote. Jen Valverde from AWS, she's been with AWS Marketplace for more than 5 years, and she's going to share some keys to success to partnering with AWS. Salesforce launched their cloud go-to-market at reInvent last year, but there's a lot of history behind that story, and I'm really excited to facilitate a fireside chat with Nick Johnston from Salesforce later on today. And then kicking off tomorrow, we have this expert pack session around the ecosystem that's growing around cloud go-to-market, specifically some thoughts on how it will evolve. Christine and Kevin and Tom and Jack will all be part of that session tomorrow. Okay, so agenda breakdown, I'm not going to say a lot here. Day one's really about executives and thought leadership. Not that everyone can't learn from these sessions, but we broke it into that track specifically. And tomorrow, we focus more on practitioners and how-tos. All sessions are recorded, as Brian said. This year's more cross-functional than ever before. We have sessions for not just alliances, but alliances, revenue leaders, RevOps people, marketing personas. And if you see content that's relevant to any of your team members, feel free, like share the registration. People can join at any point along the way. All right, so let's get into it. I'm gonna take a peek if there's any questions. I'm assuming there's not. Sweet. Okay. So what's happening in the cloud go-to-market space? I'm going to talk about macro market updates. So anytime there's a talk around cloud go-to-market, and I just see my screen is not perfectly optimized. There's a slide that looks something like this, and there's $1 trillion of B2B software spend. This is migrating to the clouds via cloud go-to-market. B2B software and cloud spend are both growing at astounding rates, adding nearly $100 billion of revenue a year each. SaaS running on clouds represents a massive element of consumption, not only from the software companies operating their SaaS in the cloud, but also buyers using a combination of SaaS and first-party services together to fuel their digital transformations. B2B software budgets migrating to the cloud represent one of the largest migration opportunities for budget dollars to be captured by the clouds, and they're in downstream capturing consumption. The spend aligned just with the 3 hyperscalers is growing fastest of all at 37% year over year. And there was just an article published yesterday talking about how Q1 the budget for the top 5 cloud providers crossed $76 billion, growing at 21% year over year. Play that forward, that's almost $400 billion in the next 12 months, with a strong skew towards the top 3 hyperscalers between AWS, Microsoft, and Google. And the lines between these trillion-dollar budgets is getting fuzzy, and that's really the fuel for cloud go-to-market. And all of this is happening while cost of sales is under more pressure than ever. Customer budgets are still a little in flux. They're more stable than they were 12 months ago, but they're still in flux. And selling SaaS is harder than it's been in a long time. And there was a great post from Jason Lemkin talking about how we return to the era of selling SaaS like it was in 2015 versus the anomaly year in 2021. So lots going on at a macro market standpoint. Now I'm going to double click down, take it down just a little bit to more of the cloud go-to-market specific growth trends. And marketplaces are growing even faster. Google published a stat that they saw 200% growth in the number of ISV co-sell deals and 270% growth in the value of deals won by their partners. Marketplaces are having a major impact on partners. AWS talked about how deals close at a 27% faster rate, 80% larger, and 40% faster. I messed some of that up, but 27% better rate, 80% larger, 40% faster. And all of this is making sense to buyers. Microsoft talked about how there was a 300% increase in customers buying through Marketplace using Mac on a year-over-year basis. And AWS at reInvent talked about how they had 330,000 customers regularly buying through the Marketplace. Last year, when we published our State of Cloud Go-to-Market, we predicted we would see $100 billion, about 10% of that $1 trillion B2B software budget, flow through the 3 hyperscale cloud marketplaces by 2026. And all the data is saying that we're well on our way towards that. So I love the slide. It's being a nerdy cloud go-to-market guy, I read a lot of earnings reports and just try to see are people talking about this movement as part of their earnings reports. And CrowdStrike is one of the most public and prominent cloud go-to-market companies out there. They were the first company I ever saw do this, talk about their AWS marketplace business during an earnings call. ServiceNow and Salesforce both launched in Q4 of last year, and both talked about this new route to market in their first earnings call post-launch, which is really interesting. These are two great examples of companies starting strategically. And that like transactional versus strategic you saw in that maturity model will be a theme throughout the talk today, as well as through the whole event. And this is not to say this is needed to be successful. It's like you can take a transactional approach and you can build your business over time. And that absolutely works. Some of the largest sellers in the world took that approach. But what we're seeing is the expectations are rising from ISVs where they're like, we're going to launch and we want to go bigger and faster than ever before. Over the last year, people who follow this market closely have seen press releases from ISVs talking about selling $1 billion through the cloud marketplaces. And that's been done over time. The big question for me is this the first year where we'll see a seller sell more than $1 billion in one calendar year? I think there's a good chance it will be. ISVs are making bigger bets, and those bigger bets are based upon the evolution of buyers and those macro level movements we saw to make this a company's most strategic channel. No questions. All right, we're good. Okay, and I think the question of if this works is long gone. Like it does. There are so many proof points, independent of company shape and size, on how you can take advantage of cloud go-to-market. But it is not all sunshine and rainbows. And I think like growth creates new market challenges. The market challenges that existed when we started in this market are so different than the market challenges today. And I've hit on strategy a bunch, so I'm going to skip that one. And I'm going to go into complexity. Complexity is not shrinking, it's actually growing. There's more business models to support. There's new requirements emerging from the clouds to take advantage of programs. Companies look to not only leverage private offers, but leverage private offers and align their bottoms up motion to the clouds. Complexity is growing. And when you have not just an alliance-led motion, but a sales-led motion, the number of people involved increases by 10 to 100 times as you get all of your sellers taking advantage of these capabilities. And this leads to trust. There's still a trust chasm with salespeople. And this is a common conversation for people who have had some initial success, but are trying to figure out how to go more broadly. Wiz published a case study about a month back, and they talked about how 99% of their salespeople had taken advantage of selling through the clouds. And this was a really amazing stat to me, because I think when we look at the most successful sellers in the world, they're not even at that level of adoption from a sales rep standpoint. Wiz is interesting. It was built as a cloud go-to-market company natively. And most successful sellers weren't. They were built at some sort of other era of go-to-market, and they integrated cloud go-to-market into it. And I think like just this test around seller trust is a good one. When you think about your own cloud go-to-market maturity, how many of your reps have pipeline with the clouds? How many have done deals? What does their cloud funnel actually look like? Do they have a funnel that's unique versus just their macro level pipeline? Can you measure that at a rep and territory level to help them understand that? Data becomes really key to crossing this trust chasm with sellers. Alignment continues to be a challenge area we hear a lot about, especially as people who start small with a small team. And alignment can be a lot of different things. It could be your executive alignment, it can be your strategy alignment, it can be your go-to-market alignment. And most of the time, like if you've had some initial success and are struggling to take it to scale, you need to go back and look at how aligned you are. And lastly, there's a scarcity of resources around this. I think the scarcity in the alliance ranks has gone away. Like actually, alliance leaders understand this and have experience building these channels, but knowledge across all the other cross-functional domains is still building. And at the end of the day, it's still really early. Like AWS talks about how it's always day one. We're at 2% of B2B software flowing through the clouds today, and it's growing fast, but the market's also growing fast. And I think there's this big question about how big will this get? It's rare I talk to someone and they say this is the only way I'm ever going to sell. Most often they're like, it's going to be meaningful, It needs to align with our direct selling motion and our channel selling motion, and it's going to be a key substrate. But how far will that $100 billion be the destination by 2026, or will we go far past that? I think that story is still to be written. Let me take a peek at questions. No questions. Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna go down a layer into some trends specific to cloud go-to-market and really shifting gears a little bit away from the numbers and more towards the business trends. So first, I mean, I mentioned one of the challenges being scarcity of resources, and the good news is the community around cloud go-to-market is growing. And we've seen a surge in communities that focus on partners, with cloud selling being a key part of their strategy. And we also continue to see an uptick from analysts covering the space. There are more voices than ever to connect with, learn with as this evolution is accelerating and cloud go-to-market becomes more strategic. And for ISVs, we're seeing this evolve from like being table stakes or growth accelerator to really being a competitive advantage. And those launching and kind of this theme of strategic versus transactional, those launching today are taking a different approach than those did just a few short years ago. And data and AI will provide far more intelligence about how cloud go-to-market fits into your partner system, but not just your partner system, but your entire go-to-market system. And this next gen cloud go to market approach is causing even the most successful sellers to take a step back, relook at their approach, and determine how they can continue to evolve it with these new patterns that we're seeing. So I touched a little bit on some buyer stats earlier, but I think buyer behavior is something I wanted to double click into. We're seeing transaction sizes go down, which is actually a good thing when you look at the buyer dynamics. So cloud commitments are moving down market. So there's more buyers than ever. And more product-led purchasing is happening, which is also not just about large-scale private offers. So the buyer transaction size going down over time is a good thing from a buyer community continuing to engage meaningfully in the cloud go-to-market movement. And typically when buyers buy once, they buy repeatedly. And that dynamic continues to change as you see the cloud budgets shift from being departmental to finance and procurement owned. And we continue to see buyers demanding like marketplace as a purchasing path. And that is something that especially happens when the cloud budget crosses over between a departmental budget and a finance and procurement owned budget. And we always had this core thesis, like back to the earliest days of Tackle in 2016, when we were thinking about what the company would become, that sellers would want to sell where buyers want to buy. And the clouds have rules around where you can sell that I'm sure many people on this call have had to navigate over time. And as the buyer behavior changes, people are encountering like buyers wanting to buy in places where maybe they're not authorized or architected or built to sell. And it's actually forcing this rethinking about architecture, short, medium, long term, if your buyers are showing up across all of the clouds. Front row. That shouldn't be there. Okay. Okay, so we skipped past buyers. So we talked about sellers, we talked about buyers. Now I just want to talk about 6 other trends that we think will define the future of cloud go-to-market. So first, and I already talked about ServiceNow and Salesforce, but Workday was another large business application provider that launched in Q4. And I think like one, this was a huge signal that the way the dollars around marketplace are being thought about is changing. These are all gigantic companies with huge budgets and large customers and lots of customers, and they see cloud go-to-market as a path that's strategic to them. And I think less so. I'm curious to see how all of their cloud go-to-market journeys evolve independently, but I think more about their ecosystems. These are big companies with big ecosystems, And will their large ecosystems follow suit on this cloud go-to-market journey? So business application space, momentum is growing, excited to see how that evolves. The second, renewals have definitely risen in importance and prominence relative to cloud go-to-market. And I think, this transactional versus strategic lens, in the past, when people thought about cloud go-to-market transactionally, they'd look at a renewal and say, why would I want to pay someone else to do the business that I've already won? Which, I mean, I could understand that logic in some instances, but what's changed has the macroeconomic environment's changed significantly, as well as the fee structure around cloud go-to-market's changed significantly. And, people are starting to look at cloud go-to-market for renewals as a way to preserve gross retention. Like there's unfortunately churn happening in the market. People bought a lot of software through the pandemic that they're trying to rationalize and understand. And can you use the renewal motion with the clouds as a way to preserve some of your gross retention, especially in a strategic ISV approach to cloud? This is a way to accelerate that growth journey. So the third area is around channel. And I think, from the dawn of channel with cloud to originally thinking about marketplace completely disrupting the channel, a lot's happened. And all ISVs have to figure out when they can get the channel working on their behalf. Like when you're building your company, if you try to do it too early, you won't get the channel's attention. If you try to do it too late, you're probably running into some struggles around growth. So what does a sweet spot for channel and an ISV's growth curve look like? And how does cloud go-to-market fit into that? And I think the question for me here is, will the clouds become the foundation for channel programs over the next 5 years? Like if you're a growth ISV thinking about launching channel, will the clouds be that default substrate for that? So I think a ton of momentum in channel, a lot more to come, early days, but a lot of acceleration, especially with large ISVs. And I do want to give a shout out to Google for their plans around marketplace channel private offers. And this solution's coming soon, but Google's taking a unique approach to empower the channel partner to manage the end-to-end customer relationship from billings to collection to RevRec. And we know the ecosystem is very excited to get their hands on this over the coming months. Okay, so the fourth trend is around build versus buy for cloud go-to-market infrastructure. And as the complexity of the market continues to grow, we're seeing more large sellers revisit homegrown cloud go-to-market infrastructure strategy and align with market-leading solutions. And in general, no one wants to build software to sell software. And the requirements and complexity continue to evolve, especially as you get to a sales-led motion versus an alliance-led motion, and CRM becomes a system of record for cloud go-to-market. We're seeing people rethink their approaches. Some of the largest sellers are rethinking their approach here. The fifth trend centers around co-sell. And co-sell, we have a few different sessions on co-sell over the next 2 days, and this is honestly probably the hottest topic in cloud go-to-market right now. Mainly because all sellers are trying to figure out how to improve their top of funnel. And co-sell is not a standalone workflow. It's part of the cloud deal cycle. And growing pipeline today is hard and expensive. And the clouds offer new avenues to do that. I think that's an undisputed statement. The challenge around it is it's still relatively unpredictable and success patterns vary. So if you're building a business plan and you're saying, how many leads do I need? What's the conversion rate around those leads? How do those leads translate into sales qualified? How do they move through the funnel? How do they convert to deals? It's hard to do that. But I think we will see a lot evolve from a co-sell maturity standpoint. And there are proven tactics to leverage co-sell to grow not only your cloud business, but your business holistically. And then lastly, I talked a lot about this. This like surged at reInvent last year around marketing as a new persona for cloud go-to-market, especially people who have proven out transactionally that this works. The top of funnel like generating pipeline is harder than ever. And if you can cloud align your pipeline, you can generate higher quality pipeline that converts sooner and faster. So a lot of movement around marketing from a trend standpoint. Okay, let me take a look at Q&A. Okay. Is AWS Marketplace only online, or does AWS provide face-to-face venue? I don't know if I understand that one, so I'm going to skip that one for now. Okay, so where are ISVs at more broadly? So one of the most common questions I get when I talk to ISVs is, where am I at relative to my peers? And what does the landscape across all ISVs look like? So I'm going to try to dive a bit deeper into those questions. So first and foremost, the benefits cloud go-to-market and co-sell. And I think some of this is a little bit of a walk back into history and a little bit of look forward, similar along lines at that lead conversation. So in 2020, we started doing research. Probably many people on this call participated in our survey for State of Cloud Go-to-Market. And it's a research report we publish every year. And the reason we kicked that off was, at the time we started, Jay McBain at Forrester was the only analyst covering the space, and the data was really, really limited. So this survey became the foundation for that report, and we continue to look to it. And I think a lot of people in the industry tell us that they look to it as well. So appreciate everyone who participates, because we do view it as an industry piece, not a tackle thing. And 3 years ago, the data was really clear. People cared about two things. One, they cared about access to committed spend. And two, they cared about the ability to use a cloud contract to do deals faster. And these were the key drivers that all ISVs thought of when they were launching their programs. Like, how can I launch and take advantage of those two things? Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't fail to get listed, but they failed to actually launch a business. And some of that was misaligned expectations, thinking like, hey, if I list, the deals will come. Like, this is a easy button. But what's become much more common knowledge over the last 3 or 4 years is that you really have to lean into getting your cloud go-to-market flywheel to spin before you can turn that into more from a top of funnel standpoint over time. And I mean, earlier we talked about the stat that, these two things, like at average deal size, deal speed, they've become true over the last 3 years. There's proof points, there's data, there's statistics that show these two benefits are true. And really what people are thinking about now is that right box. Like, how will these benefits evolve over time, and how will that translate to my overall business funnel? Will co-sell and marketplace help with top of funnel? Or is something else needed? Will they evolve towards leads and top of funnel, or is cloud go-to-market really just about fulfillment? And we believe the answer to these questions lie in the success patterns of those who've already crossed that strategic chasm. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit more. And this slide may have a little controversy around it, but I think when we look at it, when we look at the market differently, so let's look at the market from the dollars flowing through marketplace, and then let's map that to sellers. Today, about 10% of ISVs make up 75% of the dollars flowing through the clouds. Most of these ISVs have been at it a while. Like, they launched in 2017 to 2019, the earliest days of cloud go-to-market. Many of them were already large strategic partners with the clouds, had solutions that closely aligned to the cloud value prop. And when these companies reach scale, the growth rate of cloud go-to-market tends to mimic their company growth rate, because they're already selling at scale. But this is the destination. Most people are trying to figure out, how do I become one of these super sellers? And then from there, like, a lot of these companies actually launched their business with a transactional approach because there wasn't enough data, there wasn't enough proof to really take a strategic approach at that point in time. But that's starting to change. So then this gets us into the second tier of sellers, and say the next 10% of sellers make up about 15% of the dollars. And these sellers have approached it. They're typically, they didn't launch as early. Maybe they launched in the early 20s, like 2020, 2021, 2022. And some of them approached it transactionally, and some of it approached it strategically. And they've grown to the point where they're now part of the main cloud provider programs, taking advantage of the benefits. And the most common answer is these companies believe they'll do at least 20% of their revenue through the clouds, which is likely their largest channel in the world. Growth rates in the segment are different than those super sellers because these companies are oftentimes growing. They're growing really fast, maybe growth stage or pre-IPO style companies, but then their cloud businesses grow really fast, like 100% plus year over year. So they're exceeding the cloud growth rate. But the concept of growth endurance, their growth does slow over time as they get closer to that 20% of their business flowing through the clouds. And I think like this is the cohort of ISVs that will change the shape of this graph over the next 3 years. These are the ones who are going to go from meaningful businesses to strategic businesses over the next 3 years. And then the last part, I think what may surprise most people is that 80% of ISVs make up only about 10% of the dollars today. And this is the area we see gigantic variance from failure to launch, like listing and never selling anything, to people growing their business 10x year over year in pursuit of becoming one of those other two tiers of ISVs. We'll say in pursuit of becoming a 20% a year revenue ISV. And the long term, I think long term, the pace of growth from this broader segment, from this 80% segment of ISVs, will define how successful cloud go-to-market is at a macro level. If we get to that 100 billion by 2026, it will be because a larger population of this segment of ISVs are more successful than the ones that came before them. So there's a lot here, and I'm gonna. So why is this happening? Like, why is there so much variance in this cohort? One, a lot of these people only launched in the last 12 to 18 months. I just stopped using my thumb. Two, not all companies will be successful. In this cohort, we see a lot of companies get acquired. We see companies fail. Leadership changes, like dramatically change strategies. We had someone launch last year, shut down their channel because they didn't think it was strategic, get a new CEO and CRO, and relaunch 3 months later. Like leadership's points of view around cloud go-to-market change strategy. Potentially they approached it transactionally and haven't gotten aligned internally on what they want to be. Or lastly, they haven't nailed their better together story with the clouds, which really matters. All right, so how is this all changing over time? So this brings us back to our maturity model. And as you probably picked up, like I've said it a few times, the transactional approach versus a strategic approach. And people today, however they approach cloud go-to-market, if you launch today, odds are you're going to get the success faster than people who launched 12 or 24 months ago. The buyer landscape is changing, and that's decreasing the time to first transaction, which is a really good thing for the industry. I think the main difference comes down to how does your business scale over time? And everyone, strategic and transactional, need to invest in getting the flywheel going for their first, say, 10 deals. But beyond these deals is where we really see the difference in approach coming to life. Those who tend to approach strategically and have much more cross-functional buy-in tend to see their growth endurance be much, much longer and see the slope of the curve of benefits be much steeper, meaning more benefits faster. And I think there's 4 key things, and we kind of map them out along the left, that when we look at people who are going faster, they're doing these 4 things. First off, they have a strategy where it's owned more broadly than just the partner team. So who owns the strategy is a good test. I think second, internal alignment is clear. It's cross-functional. It's not, it used to just be partners and revenue, but now it's partners, revenue, marketing, product, finance. the much broader story. Third, they have very clear product fit with the clouds, and they have a clear better together story. And then lastly, they're clear about their growth aspirations, and if whether this is going to be a channel for fulfillment or a strategic growth channel for them long term. And this is not to say these approaches are just different. And I think we've seen, like, it's been really fascinating to see people take a new strategic approach over the last 12 months and get to different results than people that we worked with who are now very large and strategic sellers who took maybe years to get to that point. And I think that's the thing, that's the learning for me. Like, we can all continue to learn no matter how successful we are on how to go faster and how to better align our business to this movement over time. Let me take a look. Question. Okay. All right. We are getting close to the home stretch. So, how do you break the cycle? Like, if you're transactional today and want to be strategic, how can you break the cycle? I mean, we started, when we built the maturity model, we built a readiness assessment to help people map themselves to the maturity model. And these are the questions that we go through. And I think these 6 questions give you some foundation for a conversation as you're starting to think about, how can I change the cycle from transactional to strategic? And you can evaluate these things on your own. You can engage with us and we can help you work through your plan. But these are some areas to think about as you want to think about breaking that cycle. Okay, home stretch. We've covered a lot of ground. Macro market movement, we started with. Cloud go-to-market specific growth data. We talked about the business trends for cloud go-to-market. Talked about what's really happening today with ISVs. And the last thing I wanted to do is bring us home and talk about the use of data, how the use of data is evolving as we continue on our journey. And a funny thing happened along the way. We were building a marketplace company that became a cloud go-to-market company, and we're rapidly becoming a data company. And AI is the talk, obviously the talk of the industry these days. Many people are tired of it. No one can deny how strategic it will be. And changing the way that tech works with AI is very different than changing the way business processes work with AI. And I mean, to me, business process AI requires clear and specific use cases that fit into an existing workflow today that can be transformed with AI for tomorrow. So the workflow may not change. The workflow may stay the same. Business processes may stay the same. You just may change elements of the business process with AI. And we're leveraging our data to redefine the way that cloud go-to-market systems work. And Dylan, kind of the visionary behind Tackle, founder, CTO, has been really pioneering in this data world. And he's going to give a talk at the end of the day that goes through the details of all of these different use cases and how we're bringing them to life on behalf of our partners in the industry. I wanted to hit on a couple just upfront. So a couple I'm most excited about. So we released this cloud buyer intent model 18 months ago. It's been used 6 million times to score opportunities for ISVs, which is really amazing. And it's growing faster than 100% year over year. We scored more than 1 million unique domains. And while we continue to see growth in the number of domains that we're scoring, we're actually seeing the frequency of scoring increase more than the number of domains. So there's this like diminishing marginal return on domains, because how many companies buy B2B software? Like, is it 2 million? Is it 5 million? You get to very small companies after you get to a certain point. And a couple stories I want to talk about. So the first one's around planning, this one on the far left. And I think if you want to have a strategic approach, having a plan is really important. And a large customer of ours came to us and said they wanted to launch, but they were struggling to narrow down where to focus. Big, successful public company. And they have a whole team of people that do nothing but think about their markets and territories and where to apply resources and build territory and marketing plans and sales plans around that. We were able to use data to map out a multi-year cloud go-to-market evolution to create a reasonable business plan with very clear areas of focus that started with sales strategy and then worked its way towards execution. And we're seeing more people take a step back and say, how can I use data to re-inform our cloud go-to-market over time? So the second use case is around marketing. I touched on how this really started to emerge at reInvent last year. Quality leads are harder to come by than ever before, and marketing systems continue to get more complex. Like you look at the marketing tech stack that gets published every year, I don't even know how many thousands of products are around it these days. And being able to use cloud buyer intent data in combination with marketing data can allow you to identify high quality leads that can map back to those patterns that we've seen proven to be true. Close deals faster, close deals bigger. And being more specific, we have customers using 6sense and ZoomInfo in combination with Tackle Cloud Buyer Intent data to map all of those market signals together to be able to promote the highest quality leads to their fields. And again, generating pipeline is harder than it's ever been. So improving the quality of your account-based marketing programs using these technologies in combination is an exciting pattern. And then the last one for me is around partner. And I think back to that story around every ISV needs to figure out how partners fit into their growth journey at some point in time. Well, when you do that, how do you align with your partners around the best opportunities to focus on? And we've started to feel this pull from the partner ecosystem saying, I want to use data to inform where I focus with my ISVs around helping them sell with the clouds. We've seen it in combination. We actually think the combination of an ISV and a channel partner together, thinking about how they focus their time and attention to grow their business using cloud buyer intent data is the most unique signal. But this one's newer and one I'm excited to see play out. Okay. Wow. That was fast. That was a lot. People who know me know I like to kind of get into the details. Hopefully I was able to hit the peaks while dipping down into the valleys along the way and give you some interesting insights. Thank you for joining today. It means a lot to us. We are here to support you not only today, but into the future. Tackle is led by a very passionate group of market experts who love nothing more than helping our customers sell more, sell faster through the clouds. So we feel like we're in an amazing position, most experience. We have the most complex customers. We have the largest team. We have long-term investors, and we're capitalized for the long game because we do think it is very early in this market and there is still so much more to come. All right, we got about 5 minutes. So people can actually we wrap in 4 minutes and 44 seconds. So if you're new to this platform, once that timer ends, when this session ends, you'll immediately be transferred into the next session. So it does create the opportunity for speakers to manage their time well. Our next session centers around a CRO panel, unlocking revenue growth with cloud go-to-market. So that should be a great one. And then Di from Google is going to join us to talk about Google Cloud go-to-market in the Gen AI era. And then at 2:00, we'll have a session. I'll facilitate a session with Nick from Salesforce, which should be a lot of fun. And then we'll get into the rest of the sessions through the afternoon. So I will take a look and see if there's any questions. If not, feel free to take a bio break before our next session starts in 3.5 minutes. Thank you so much for joining. Really excited for Cloud Go-to-Market XP. We appreciate you all. All right, Q&A. There's a bunch. Do you have any stats around what the buyers look like, meaning percent of enterprises, percent of ISVs that are buying through Marketplace? So, the trends around enterprise versus SMB are, predominantly it aligns with that cloud budget curve. Historically, the cloud commitment centered in the enterprise. You could say Fortune 500 first, Global 2000 second, but now they're starting to move down market, and the clouds have all changed the level of commitment needed to make a cloud commitment. So the numbers are lower. So it's actually going more into that SMB space. And there's actually some really interesting ISVs who are using Marketplace in the SMB community in order to improve the quality of their collections. So Drata is talking tomorrow, and Kevin from Drata is, I think, a pioneer in this space where they have more SMB style customers and they default their business to marketplace, and they've had a ton of success there. I will have to come back to this, and maybe we can publish some content relative to the exact stats. I think we're still in of the dollars flowing, a lot of the dollars come from enterprise, but we're seeing buyer growth happen in that SMB space as cloud commitments come down. So a few different dynamics there, but we can probably publish more content around that. Hyperscaler seller comp model, and how do you get them to care? So not talking about that in this session, and maybe if another tackler is on and knows when we're going to talk about comp, we have a lot of content around the way the hyperscalers comp their field, the way you should think about comping your field. The general best practice centers around making comp at a minimum comp neutral for your sellers, if not comp positive, to get the flywheel going in order to build the patterns for success that you can then educate the cloud providers with. This does come down to that maturity approach. So a bunch more in there. We'll see if any tackler pounces on that in the chat. That's a great question. So comment around co-sell's not easy. Hang your hat on deal acceleration. Our experience as hyperscaler field teams are more interested in late stage qualified pipeline. This point deal is almost closed. Is there anything we can do? This is a question around like how to accelerate the funnel earlier. I think this is very much where we think data comes into play. We see a lot of people use our cloud buyer intent data to inform their early stage funnel, to improve the quality of their co-sell, to get people to engage, the cloud providers to engage more actively. So that's a good, like, I think that's a great one. If you work with someone from Tackle, please reach out. We can definitely have a conversation about that one. There's a lot of tactics there, and we're going to get cut off in 30 seconds. So thank you for saying you love this talk. And I'm always happy to talk to leadership teams. I do a lot of just briefing leadership teams on what's happening in cloud go-to-market. So I'm JJ at tackle.io. Feel free to drop me a note. I'm always here to help. All right, 10-second countdown. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks for coming to Cloud Go-to-Market XP. We'll see you soon.